For decades, fans of classic television have been captivated by the dynamic duo of the A-Team, and few relationships behind the scenes have sparked as much curiosity as that between Dirk Benedict and George Peppard. The chemistry on screen between the witty, charming face and the tough, commanding Hannibal was undeniable, but off-screen the story was far more complex. At 80, Dirk Benedict is finally opening up about his experiences with Peppard, offering insight into their professional rivalry, personal interactions, and the untold truths that shaped both their careers. The revelation goes beyond anecdotes or playful gossip. It is a candid look at the challenges of working with a larger-than-life personality like George Peppard. Dirk, known for his humor and thoughtful perspective, recalls the tension, disagreements, and occasional friction that occurred behind the cameras. While the show projected camaraderie, humor, and adventure to millions of viewers, the real-life dynamic required patience, understanding, and a strong sense of professionalism. What makes Dirk's story compelling is the balance between admiration and honesty. He respects Peppard's talent, leadership, and dedication to the show, but he doesn't shy away from revealing moments of conflict, frustration, and misunderstandings that fans never saw. These stories illuminate the human side of iconic stars, showing that even beloved on-screen duos navigate complicated relationships, strong personalities, and the pressures of fame. At 80, Dirk Benedict's reflections are both insightful and revealing. They provide a rare glimpse into the life of George Peppard, as seen through the eyes of someone who worked closely with him, laughed with him, and occasionally clashed with him. It's a story about respect, rivalry, and the complexities of being part of television history. A story that finally sheds light on the man behind Hannibal and the actor who shared the screen with him. Dirk Benedict is best remembered as Templeton Face Peck, the charming con artist of the A-Team, a role that showcased his charisma, wit, and impeccable timing. Yet behind the iconic on-screen persona lay a world of complex dynamics, particularly with his co-star George Peppard, who played the commanding Hannibal. While viewers saw effortless chemistry and humor, Dirk now reveals that the reality behind the cameras was far more intricate, shaped by personalities, egos, and the pressures of producing a hit television show. Dirk recalls the first time he met Peppard on set. He was immediately aware of the veteran actor's strong presence, both on and off camera. George carried himself with a confidence that was hard to match, Dirk explains. He commanded attention, not just from the crew but from everyone on set. You knew he was in charge, and that sometimes meant navigating his expectations carefully. From the beginning, it was clear that Peppard's experience and reputation would influence every interaction, every scene, and every creative decision. Despite the challenges, Dirk quickly learned to adapt. He recognized that their contrasting styles were part of what made the show work. Dirk's playful, lighthearted energy balanced Peppard's serious, authoritative demeanor, creating a dynamic that audiences loved. Yet maintaining that balance off-screen required effort, patience, and diplomacy. We had to find ways to work together while respecting each other's strengths, Dirk says. Sometimes it was easy, sometimes it was complicated. Conflict and tension were inevitable. Peppard, a seasoned actor with strong opinions, had particular ideas about how scenes should unfold, how the show should be run, and how performances should be delivered. Dirk, eager to contribute his own creativity and humor, occasionally found himself at odds with the direction Peppard preferred. These disagreements were not about ego alone, they were about two talented actors, striving for excellence in a high-pressure environment. And navigating that tension became part of the professional journey. Dirk also emphasizes the human side of Peppard. Beyond his on-set authority, behind the stern exterior was a man dedicated to his craft, committed to delivering memorable performances and protective of the show's quality. George was demanding, yes, Dirk recalls, but he cared deeply about the work. That's something I learned to respect, even when it was difficult in the moment. Those moments of friction, Dirk notes, were balanced by moments of mentorship, shared laughter, and mutual respect that often went unseen by the audience. Closes by highlighting the duality of Dirk's experience. On screen, he and Peppard created television magic, embodying characters who would be remembered for generations. Off-screen, the reality was a complex mix of admiration, rivalry, and professional negotiation. Dirk's reflections reveal that the story of the A-Team is not just about action-packed adventures or iconic catchphrases, it's also about navigating personalities, maintaining professionalism, and forging a working relationship that could survive the pressures of fame, deadlines, and creative differences. As Dirk prepares to share more candid stories at 80, it becomes clear that the truth about George Peppard is layered, a mix of brilliance, intensity, and humanity that shaped not only the show, but Dirk's own journey as an actor and collaborator. While the A-Team captivated audiences with its mix of humor, action, and camaraderie, the reality behind the cameras was far more complex. Dirk Benedict recalls that working alongside George Peppard was both a privilege and a challenge. Peppard's commanding presence set the tone for the set, and his meticulous approach to acting demanded focus and adaptability from everyone involved. George was a perfectionist, Dirk explains. Sometimes that created tension, but it also pushed you to elevate your performance. You learned quickly to keep pace with him. Dirk shares that the most significant challenges arose during scenes requiring improvisation or comedic timing. As the playful face, Dirk often relied on spontaneity and wit, while Peppard, in the role of the disciplined Hannibal, preferred structure and precise delivery. These differing approaches occasionally led to friction. There were times when we didn't see eye to eye, Dirk admits. I wanted to inject humor, he wanted to stick to the script. But those moments, as tense as they could be, ultimately made the scene stronger. Off camera, Dirk observed the complexity of Peppard's personality. While the actor appeared stern and authoritative to most, Dirk discovered a man with a dry sense of humor and moments of genuine warmth. Peppard could be exacting, even intimidating, but he also demonstrated fairness and integrity. He expected the best from everyone, including himself, Dirk recalls. If you met his standards, he respected you. That was rare in Hollywood. The behind-the-scenes stories also reveal Peppard's protective nature toward the show and his colleagues. Dirk remembers an incident on set when a stunt went slightly wrong. While others panicked, Peppard calmly assessed the situation and ensured that no one was in danger. He took responsibility, even in moments of chaos, Dirk explains. That's when you realized he wasn't just an actor, he was a leader. These moments helped Dirk understand why Peppard commanded both respect and, occasionally, fear on set. Also highlights the lighter moments, which were just as important. Between takes, Dirk and Peppard shared conversations about life, acting, and the challenges of fame. Sometimes those talks were serious, other times filled with playful banter. You didn't always see that side on camera, Dirk says. But those private moments were crucial. They reminded me that George was human, with humor, opinions, and even insecurities like anyone else. Despite occasional disagreements, Dirk emphasizes the deep respect he had for Peppard. Their dynamic was never about personal animosity. It was about two actors striving to deliver the best performances possible under immense pressure. Dirk believes that the tension, combined with mutual admiration, contributed to the memorable on-screen chemistry that fans loved. It wasn't always easy, Dirk admits, but it was always worth it. As closes, it becomes clear that the story behind the A-Team is as much about the human relationships as it is about the action sequences and witty dialogue. Dirk Benedict's reflections reveal that George Peppard was a complex man, intense, exacting, yet capable of humor and kindness, and that understanding this complexity is essential to appreciating both the man and the iconic series they helped create together. Dirk Benedict's reflections on George Peppard go beyond professionalism. They reveal personal lessons and behind-the-scenes anecdotes that fans have never heard. At 80, Dirk is candid about the challenges, triumphs, and sometimes humorous moments that shaped their working relationship and, ultimately, the legacy of the A-Team. One of the earliest lessons Dirk recalls was learning to navigate Peppard's exacting nature. Peppard had a reputation for being demanding, insisting on precise delivery and perfect timing, whether for dialogue or action sequences. Dirk initially found this intimidating. You couldn't just show up and coast, Dirk remembers. George expected focus, discipline, and respect for the craft. It pushed me in ways I hadn't expected, but it made me a better actor. While some co-stars found this challenging, Dirk gradually came to appreciate that Peppard's high standards were part of what made the show so successful. Dirk also shares several humorous incidents that highlight Peppard's dry wit. During one episode, a prop malfunctioned mid-scene, and the crew expected frustration or anger. Instead, Peppard quipped in his signature deadpan style, causing everyone to break character and laugh. He could be. Also explores Peppard's humanity behind the fame. Dirk recounts times when Peppard confided about the pressures of celebrity, the responsibilities of leading a major show, and the constant scrutiny from the media. These conversations revealed a man who, despite his stern exterior, grappled with the same fears, ambitions, and frustrations as anyone else. Dirk notes that understanding this side of Peppard made their working relationship more meaningful and nuanced. As closes. Dirk emphasizes that his time with Peppard was a masterclass in professionalism, patience, and adaptability. The anecdotes, tensions, and quiet mentorship not only defined their on-set relationship but also shaped Dirk's approach to acting, collaboration, and life. The stories underscore that behind every iconic television character lies a network of complex relationships, unseen efforts, and lessons learned the hard way. Dirk Benedict's reflections remind fans that George Peppard was not just Hannibal, he was a layered individual whose intensity, humor, and guidance influenced those around him profoundly. Understanding this dynamic offers a rare glimpse into the human side of a star and the intricate interplay that made the A-Team unforgettable. At 80, Dirk Benedict speaks about George Peppard with a calm honesty that only time can give. The tension, admiration, frustration, and respect that once defined their working relationship have now settled into clarity. Looking back, Dirk no longer measures their time together by disagreements or power struggles, but by what it ultimately meant for his career, for the show, and for his understanding of leadership and legacy. Dirk admits that for years he stayed mostly silent. Not because he had nothing to say, but because the truth required context. George wasn't easy, Dirk reflects. But easy people don't usually make great television. Peppard carried the weight of the A-Team on his shoulders, and that pressure shaped everything from his tone on set to his insistence on control. At the time, it created distance. Now Dirk sees it as responsibility expressed imperfectly. With distance comes perspective. Dirk now understands that Peppard viewed himself not simply as an actor, but as the guardian of the show's identity. He worried about consistency, credibility, and respect for the craft. That intensity often came across as rigidity, even dominance, especially to younger cast members. But beneath it was fear of failure, fear of chaos, fear that the show could slip into parody instead of power. George believed Hannibal had to be taken seriously, Dirk says. And in his mind, that meant everything had to go through him. Dirk reflects on moments that once felt personal but now feel inevitable. Disagreements over screen time, tone, and character direction were not about ego alone. They were about vision. Two strong personalities trying to protect what they believed was right. With age, Dirk sees that neither was wrong. They were simply wired differently. That realization brings peace, though there is also gratitude. Dirk acknowledges that Peppard's discipline raised the standard for everyone. The long rehearsals, the insistence on precision, the refusal to cut corners, all of it contributed to the show's lasting impact. If George hadn't been who he was, Dirk admits, the A-Team wouldn't be remembered the way it is. That recognition softens the sharper memories and reframes them as necessary friction, rather than needless conflict. Dirk also speaks openly about forgiveness, not because Peppard asked for it, but because time demanded it. Holding on to resentment no longer serves any purpose. What remains is respect for a man who carried his flaws openly and his talent heavily. George was complicated, Dirk says, but so is anything worth remembering. As the years pass, what lingers most are not the arguments, but the shared victories, the laughter between takes, the moments when scenes clicked, the undeniable electricity that audiences felt but never saw being built. Dirk now sees George Peppard as both collaborator and catalyst, someone who challenged him, sharpened him, and in his own way, helped define the role that made Dirk unforgettable to millions. In the end, Dirk Benedict's truth is not explosive or cruel. It is human. George Peppard was not a villain, nor was he a saint. He was a driven, intense, sometimes difficult man who cared deeply about his work and the legacy he would leave behind. At 80, Dirk no longer feels the need to defend himself or rewrite history. He simply tells it as it was: balanced, honest, and complete. What remains is respect. Respect for the work they created together. Respect for the man Peppard tried to be. And respect for the time it took to finally understand one another. That, more than any headline or rumor, is the real truth Dirk Benedict waited a lifetime to share.